Good evening, I'm Billy Belcher with the Working Class and Houseless Organizing Alliance. On November 19th, 2021, the Greensboro Police Department killed Joseph Lopez. One officer, Officer Hamilton, was arrested for that crime. But Officer Hamilton's actions weren't any different than those of the cops who were with him that night. He was the team's trigger man. They've arrested the trigger man and let the rest of the gang go free. To single Hamilton out for blame is not justice. And the trial of Officer Hamilton will leave some important issues unresolved. And I know the City Council, you'll be happy to leave those issues unresolved. So I'm gonna make sure you get at least a couple of minutes to think about them. First is the use of the dog on Lopez. The police dog is not a substitute for deadly force. It is deadly force. It is a dog that can kill you. Is that clear? Do we understand? Instead of trying to talk the nonviolent Mr. Lopez through a crisis he was clearly having, Greensboro police decided on potentially deadly force and used a dog. With Mr. Lopez trapped in that shed, Mr. Lopez was safe, the police were safe, and the public was safe, but our department still used the canine unit. If that is policy, then policy says that human life in Greensboro doesn't have much meaning. When I see the use of the dog, I remembered of how the police commonly used the rip hobble so often until Marcus Smith was killed, and then we finally made that stop. I think we should investigate how we use the canine unit and whether we're using it in situations where we simply don't have to. Second is the phantom object in Mr. Lopez's hand. In the footage released, we hear Officer Hamilton say he saw something in Lopez's hand. I assume you watched the video, so what was that object, right? It wasn't one, was there? I mean, the police didn't retrieve anything. And Lopez's phone was in his pocket. We see the cops remove it. And none of the police on the scene seem surprised at this discrepancy, as if Hamilton's statement is just something you say for the camera and not something to be taken seriously. And so one seriously wonders if it isn't an unofficial policy to exclaim something in his hand for the camera whenever a Greensboro police officer fires on a civilian. The actions of Hamilton and every other police officer around him that night on the videos suggest that something like that is indeed the case. If you think Hamilton was arrested justly, then you ought to call for all of them to be arrested. And if you don't want to admit that they're all guilty, you might as well demand that all the charges be dropped. But the whole police department is designed to kill the Joseph Lopez's of our city, and that needs to change.